Right. Ooh, what's up?
Recombine to break voting systems with a little bit of help from third-party tools. In order not to be suspicious,
Andy, how's it going?
Some background.
Daniel's going to try to join us.
Can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Does it sound like I have earphones in or are they not working?
No, sounds good.
Okay. Um, Daniel he'll be like en route. So if he jumps on,
He just texted me
he's,
for the link, so he's gonna be driving, I think, but
yeah, yeah,
we'll see.
makes sense. Um,
Tuesday, 7 a.m. where he's at.
is that what it is? 7 a.m. right now?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. And then his plans changed. Like he was asked to do something else. So yeah. How you
It's
been? How
all
the
good.
kiddos?
Great.
Yeah. Whose birthday?
That's my wife's.
Oh, okay. Very
Yep.
cool.
Yep.
Very cool. Things going pretty good? Staying busy?
Yeah, things are going really well. Started running quite a bit more too on that end, so got to get in shape for camp.
I'll tell you a crazy running story. All right. So while we wait for people to come on, so I went to do Lake Placid as a just
You
as a
like,
part of a charity,
yeah.
and I did like half the swim and half the run. So I did the second half the swim, and then the second. But I did like the chip swap. I did it with Ben Hoffman.
Yeah.
So Ben gives me his chip, puts it around my ankle. I take off. I run into the water, and I step on like a pebble. And I like it was pretty small, but it was sharp. Boom. And then I just do a couple dives and start swimming. I'm like, ow, that hurts, but whatever. The first buoy I hit, I'd forgotten all about it. I do
Yeah.
the swim, come out, and then I'm running down to swap my timing chip for our cyclist, right? So,
Yeah.
and he was going to do the whole thing. And then, so I give him, and I start running. I couldn't, I was like, oh, this hurts my heel. What's going on with my heel? I don't know.
Oh
And then
no.
I bend over, I give him my chip. I bend over, I looked at my heel, and there's a hole in it. And I'm like, oh no, what's going on? I went to the med tent. They cleaned it out. They're like, okay, it looks good. You're fine. And I put a little donut on it, and then I wrapped it up and went and did the half marathon. And I couldn't walk the next day. Couldn't walk.
Of
The
course.
next day, couldn't walk. The whole next week, can't walk. Like I'm protecting it. Um, I took pictures of it. I was like, should I go to the doctor? What should I do? I think I gave myself plantar fasciitis. I'm just babying the crap out of it. And I'm showing Lisa, and she's like, it doesn't look good. You should go to the doctor, right? I'm like, no, no, I don't need to go to the doctor. I just can't run. Riding's fine, swimming's great. I just can't put any pressure on my heel. And slowly but surely, like there's this black thing that starts kind of coming down and my body's kicking it out. 32 days later, I'm
I'm
picking
kidding.
at my heel, and the rock
The
comes out.
Rock. Oh my gosh. That's gnarly.
Yeah, and it looked, you know, what it looked like? It looked like a canine tooth, like a really, and the sharp part was pointing up.
No wonder you
Yeah,
couldn't run. That's crazy.
and then I just have this hole in my heel. I'm such an idiot. Yeah, and I texted my dad like a picture of the hole in my heel and then the rock that was in it. He goes, "Yeah, I think I told you about 3 weeks ago to go to the doctor to get that taken out." Yeah, you
Always
did,
listen to
Dad.
pops.
Yep. So yeah, sometimes you think you can tough it out. Other times there is definitely something wrong and you need to have it checked out.
I'm amazed you still ran on it. I mean, for that little bit, that's crazy.
Dumb, but funny. Yeah. So I honestly thought I gave myself planner. It's like, oh, the shearing, the bottom of my foot hurts.
Yeah.
Or like doing planner exercises and stretching. Nope, not planner. All right. We got a little bit of a few people joining in. I don't know how to change the setting. Are you on the top screen there, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
What do you need?
Um, I wonder how you change it to
Tanya's
like,
here. Greg's here. He's a new athlete. Let's see.
oh, let's go that way. Let's go. I'm going to change the view. What's immersive mean? No, no, we're not doing that.
What are
Okay.
you
All
trying to
right.
do so everybody you can see everybody?
So um this is what happens when I get control of the technology. Like I'm usually just this is a Daniel thing. As you can even say, my name on the thingy says Daniel. Yeah, he gave me his login. Anyway, so if there's anything wrong, it's my fault. But let's first lead off with championship racing. Um, Steve, how would you kind of frame championship meets and championship events versus an event?
I would say you're always surrounded by people. Meaning, I mean, it's whether you're in the faster top pointy tier of the race or in the back where normally you are winning your age group. There just seems to be a lot more people around you just because it's the same caliber of type of people that are surrounding
Yeah. So the vibe is a little bit like sharper and enhanced because of the people, or
you. Yeah, and I think sometimes people, I mean, they let that maybe take them out of their game plan. They might be surrounded by a lot more people when maybe they're used to not being around that many people, and they may think, okay, I gotta get away from this people. But I mean, that almost seems to be everybody's mindset is I gotta get away, gotta get away, instead of especially in a race like this, sticking to the game plan of whatever that is in the swim, your watts on the bike. I mean, just sticking to your game plan. I think is the biggest thing I think people should take out of this.
I agree. Um, no matter what the endeavor is, once you get to the real top of it and you do championship racing, those people that can keep their wits about them, that can make their own decisions for their in their own best interest and not being taken out of the game by either the intensity of the effort, the duration of the effort, the people that surround them, the conditions that are out of their control. Like if you can kind of juggle all those things that are happening around you and still have that a strength in your mind, saying this is how I want to execute, which is so easy to say and so hard to do. I think that's probably the biggest differentiating factor from a championship race in a non-championship race, and you can even see it at the Olympic Games. There's a little bit more tension in the air, and every move feels like the move. Oh, I got to be a part of it. I got to go. They're starting to pull away. I want to be a part of it, and then you start doing somebody else's tactics, and you start racing somebody else's race.
You pay for
I
it.
grant it, like it does depend on your goals and what you want, but if you can weather those small storms, and then still dictate the pace when you want it to. Those are usually their most successful athletes on race day.
Yeah.
Yep.
So what do you think? I mean, you think patience? I mean, just keep telling yourself patience.
Yeah, I think patience. I think really. So this was a huge goal of mine, specifically with championship racing. But then it turned into like a general goal with all my racing. Was can I stay focused? How is that attention to detail in my brain and the task at hand? And that focus has to do with a presence, like being in the moment. How well can you execute in the moment and be present? I never got it right. I was never able to do it, but I had great intentions to try to execute. I think the race was probably too long. Um, I think Ironman racing is definitely too long. You're looking at over 480 minutes is 8 hours. That's a really long time to stay focused. Even in a 2 hour race, that like, uh, what is that?
Totally.
120 minutes. Like you're gonna have a wayward thought. Um, pretty difficult to do, but it's an honest, like to try to achieve. Those are probably my biggest go-tos are being present, being in the moment. And then when I drill down to details, it helps me stay away from making like this macro or big mistake. I can really keep things narrow and micro and go, okay, what is the technique required to execute a clean stroke in a swim? What's the cadence required to stay on board with this effort?
Mhm.
What is the power required throughout 300, that whole clock face, 360 degrees on that pedal stroke? Like, can I stay engaged on the bottom part? Can I scrape the bottom? Can I lift? Can I use my whole leg and my low back? So, am I disciplined with my position? And then I think this could be a good segue into Nice, but am I fueling? Am I staying on top of it without the reminder? Sometimes people will put the watch reminders or put on their display computer, but can you preempt it and can you be ahead of it so you can maintain focus? And your brain only consumes glucose, so that's its source of energy. And it's the most demanding organ in terms of energy that the human body has. So once you find your focus waning or straying from being in the moment, that is the telltale sign to fuel. So that's your ticker to fuel. Am I staying focused? Am I staying disciplined? If you start to become undisciplined, if your mind starts to wander into things other than what you're doing, and then lastly is if you can be detached from yourself, but you don't want to become apathetic or uninvested.
Mhm.
Once apathy sets in, that's a very hard hurdle to clear, to get back and re-engaged. So, and a lot of this stems from that fueling aspect, right? So, I fuel with infinite. So, I think this fueling piece is going to be a really big piece of the puzzle when it comes to Nice. If you want to segue into Nice, you comfortable doing that, Steve?
Yeah.
Okay. So, number one, I was talking with, I swim with a bunch of other pros, and they're like, one of them went to France in August. He was there all of August doing some training. And I asked him, how was he with the water? And he's like, oh, yeah, like I had some bottled water and some tap water. And I'm like, okay, why aren't you just having bottled water? Because you're only there for 4 weeks. Your body didn't grow up with this system. And I actually advocate for everybody, no matter, even if you're in America, to drink bottled water when you travel, if you want the most from your body. if you are traveling for fun and you're in your, if it's not a race endeavor, and you're not demanding the utmost from your body for a performance, then you do what you want. But like these, I was swimming with these guys, and I was like, "Hey, did you?" Someone said something about, "Oh, I got sick in Arizona." I was like, Do you drink that water?" And they're like, "Yeah, yeah, it's just Arizona. It touches us, it's statewide. Like we're pretty close." I'm like, "Don't do it. Don't do it. Just drink bottled water. It's not worth. You're putting your body into so much stress. The
Yeah.
last thing it needs for such a long time, too. There's so many other variables that are out of your control. This one thing can be controlled if you have the discipline to do it." So they were like, "Oh, I never thought of it." Like when I go to Florida, I'm like, "Yeah, when you go to Kansas, when you go to California, yes, you can, if you're just going to surf and have a good time and or climb mountains, or even if you're just going to train, you don't necessarily need bottled water. But if you're going for peak performance on a singular effort on a singular day, set it up the right way with controlling those variables with some bottled water." And they were like, "Okay, all right, good mental note, right?" So, what's all this preamble about? It is, the fueling leading into a race, super important. I'd stick with bottled water if you're going to travel to France. Stick with bottled water, especially for an Ironman World Championships. The duration that you're out there, the exposure to the elements and the effort is long and hard. So go big, right? And give yourself a chance and just get some bottled water. Um, when you're talking about race specific stuff, you want to show up hydrated, but not necessarily overly so. Um, but yeah, thoughts on that, Steve? The preamble to racing and with hydration and food and the controllables.
No, I think that's a great idea. Something I never even would have really put that much thought into. But I think, obviously, like you said too, it's a world championship race. I mean, it's going to come down to all the little things to kind of get you to where you want to be in your goals. So I think that's great. Now,
So,
I think
things
Daniel raced this race. Have you done these before?
I haven't not raced it, but I've seen it a couple of times to know how to read it.
Okay.
Um, and I have been to Nice. So, and I do know that you're swimming in the med, pretty clear.
Yeah.
However, people talk about the beaches and stuff. They're rocks.
Yeah. No sand.
But it's not a sandy beach. It's a
No.
rocky beach. But Daniel said like they do cover it on race day, so you
Uh,
do have that carpet. And I will say this: I know this that it does drop off immediately. So it's like maybe 3, 4 steps, bang,
Boom.
and then you're
50
swimming.
feet. Yeah.
Yep. Yep. So, expect clear waters, expect a quick drop off. And, I pay attention to the wind in the morning. Like if there's waves coming at you, where the turns are, if you need to control your breathing to one side versus the other. And then, um, it could potentially change once you're on the bike and especially on the run. It's going to change again. So it's winds change all the time, right? So
Yeah.
just because it's happening in the morning doesn't mean it's going to continue and perpetuate into the afternoon when you're on your feet. So pay attention to that.
So continuing, I guess, nutrition on the bike, it's flat for a little bit, and then the hills start, and it kind of looks like they don't stop for a long time. So how do you advise with so much climbing, getting all your nutrition in? Wait for the flat parts, or what do you think?
So I think that the nutrition piece to Nice is one of those things that if you understand what's coming at you and how to anticipate the contours and how to navigate the road, I think that you will can only benefit by knowing having a little bit of more information. So you want to walk through the how, what, when, and where.
Yeah,
Okay. All right. So first 10K, pretty flat. Gonna have like a couple chicanes, roundabouts. Um, I would really, because nutrition is such a big part of this race, I would wrap your bottles. I would take a rubber band, You're going to put it around the bottom of the cage, up over the nipple and back down. And I would rubber band your bottles. Um, it's going to give you just a little bit more security on a few speed bumps that are in the second section. That if you eject early, I mean, you just have to, it's another adapt and overcome moment that could potentially be avoided. So, first 10K, you're just heading outbound, pretty flat. Just have your wherewithal, have your wits about you. Um, the second part is the steepest part, right? This is going to be about 15K. You're going to go to a really steep climb at the bottom. It's a pretty decent kicker. Um, don't know if it is the actual steepest, but it's a pretty big punch in the face. And then after you get up the steep climb, there's some speed bumps right where you need to make sure you're not ejecting. So what I do on that first 10K outbound, I make sure like everything's on board. I'm starting to get comfortable in my position, and I might take some water, a little bit of calories because of the swim, right? Depending on how long you're out in the swim, whether that's an hour, 2 hours, anywhere in between, you're going to want to start to put calories in. It's an easy spot to do it once you
Yeah.
know that you're safe and it's not super crowded. Um, you're going to hit an aid station on the climb, and excuse me, and on that aid station, that's where I would really like get that first reminder of when to fuel. You can fuel on the uphill as long as you're pedaling circles. So this pace shouldn't be so much that you're exhausted after 8 minutes. You're above VO2 max and you're pushing an outrageous number for you. And so therefore it becomes, oh, I can actually metabolize. The effort isn't so high. I can't consume, metabolize, and use the fuel I'm using. So I would really use these climbs as the opportunity to fuel. Steepest one is at the bottom, maybe like 20K in. No, maybe like, sorry, 13K into the race is a steep climb. Okay. After you go up for about, after that steep climb, a couple roundabouts, there's a descent. It's about 8K. And everybody thinks like in Nice, the descent is always at the end. Well, there are two descents before the big descent. And there's the 8K descent. It's pretty flowy. You can get rock and rolling early, but because even though it's a wave format, there still is congestion early. And when there's a hill, everything will glom together, and then it separates out because of the velocity on the descent. So on that early descent, even if it's flowy, it can be congested. So make sure you're following the right line, the appropriate line for you. Um, you just want to pay attention. You want to pay attention because there's people around you, and it's the first descent, and that's about 8K. Right after that, it's 28K up. You're going up. You're grinding 28K. So what's 28K? What is that? 17 miles.
Yeah, solid work. Yeah, I've been with you at races. You kind of sometimes seem to just get in and get out. How often would you drive, like actually physically drive the course? This seems like one that would make sense to, if you get out a couple days before and drive it. Would you recommend that?
Yeah, I would. I would also look up some YouTube stuff to try to
Yeah.
see if there is a continual flow for like maybe on YouTube.
Yeah.
Um, when you're going uphill, things just come at you pretty slow and it's pretty manageable. I mean, your effort is high, but you're able to like absorb what's coming at you. When you're going downhill and the pace is so high, things are flying past you at a rate that you're just not ready to handle. And so I would actually really try to pay as much attention as I could on descents and kind of let that focus wander a little bit and go actually micro and look at mechanics. So I would think about pedaling efficiency on climbs,
Yeah.
pedaling 360 degrees, light on the hands, like we say, like playing that piano, trying not to hold tension through your shoulders, just really light and making sure it's a full pedal stroke. That's my climbing technique. And then on descent, I do uh, focus on the technique as well, but it's things are rushing at you. They're rushing, right? So is my weight rearward? Am I uh, steady on the front, feathering the rear if I need braking power? Am I presenting my body for the biggest, like a parachute? All the things that we talk about on our camps on how to descend, how to climb, the nitty gritty, the details. This ride breaks up so much that you can stay focused if you're fueling right. And you should be fueling on the climbs. Once you get up to the plateau after that 28-mile ascent, it's tough. It's kind of grindy more than it is punchy. I would say that first kicker is punchy out of town after that 10K. That kicker is punchy. The 28-mile grind is just kind of relentless.
Yeah.
You're in a race 17 miles up. And then you get to the top, kind of like this plateau. That's where you're going to find your special needs up there. I would plan that. Plan for special needs. If you grab it, great. If you don't, another opportunity to adapt and overcome. And that's kind of how I frame it too. I remember one time in Hawaii, I had a gel flask, had 560 calories in my gel flask, and I'm coming out of we swim, I mount my bike, coming out of the King Cam. There's the quick ascent. You turn left, and the road is Makala. I'm on Makala, and I hit a speed bump. Boom, I eject my gel flask, and I'm like less than a kilometer into this race. I'm like 600 meters into this race and gone, 500 calories gone. So it was like, this is really early to try to adapt and overcome. You can do it. I finished. I did okay. Um, Not ideal. So,
I think I would have
with
gone
that being
back.
said, put rubber bands around your bottles. And then on special needs, it's worth it to kind of slow down and grab the special needs if you're counting on it. If you've been training for Morton and what's the name of the hydration one?
I
Supplements.
don't know the new one.
Yeah, the hydration one is so if you're training with what's on course, great. But if you're not, plan to slow down a little bit for the special needs. It's not a real splash. There is one descent if you want to reference it. It's called Colbass, Colbas. That is on the plateau. It's about 3 or 4K long. There's like 2 or 3 tricky hairpins that you have to pay attention to. Again, that's Colbass on the plateau. And then you want to pay I think it's right around like 86 to 87 kilometers into the race. And the reason I know this is because 90K is halfway on an Ironman. So just before halfway, just before that 90K is a 3 to 4K descent, which is super tight. Um, so then you come back up, you start rolling some more, and it's before the long descent. Now, before descents, that's when you want to fuel. There's 2 really big descents. And that's what you want to fuel before. You do not want to take your hands off, either whether that you're an arrow or you're on the horns. You want your focus to be on like navigating the course, staying arrows, being disciplined with your game. And to do that, you need to fuel before. Okay. The After that long descent, there is one more climb. It's about 6K long. Um, about halfway up that climb is a aid station. So it's that reminder, hey, fuel up before the really long descent home. Um,
Yeah.
and the aid stations are placed at the right places for you to have it be the reminder. Fueling up before the descent is probably for those that have the focus and the wherewithal is going to be your biggest advantage, right? Um, when you are doing this last long descent, you have about 20K flat before you get home. But once you start pedaling, it's going to feel awkward. So if you haven't driven blood flow to your legs and you're really kind of static on the bike, it's hard to re-enter that dynamic. Do you have any tips or tricks, Steve, on long descent and then riding again? What do you like to do to re-energize?
It kind of depends on the how technical it is, but I mean, there'll be times too where I'll just do a soft pedal just because I can feel myself when I'm tucked. I feel myself getting stiff, so I'll maybe be a little less aero, but a little bit of a soft pedal. Really, not even probably pushing any watts, but just to kind of get some blood flowing, just to kind of wake the legs up a bit.
And I think one that 6K climb after the first long descent on near the end, that's your wake up call. It's like, oh, there is more riding to be had, but this is if you were to go out and do that 6K climb, you wouldn't think anything of it. But because of
Yeah,
when it shows up in the race profile, and look, it's a lot more daunting because you haven't been driving blood to the legs,
yeah,
right? And so that's your wake up call. Then you fuel again, long descent, and then 20K back to T2. That's your chance. And you'll know if you did it right in terms of timing your fueling because you'll be excited that you're off everybody's excited to get off the bike, but you'll be engaged in the first hour of the run versus playing catch up on the run. And that run is exposed.
yeah. Daniel, I think, said that you're only getting a little bit of shade. I mean, he said it's pancake flat, but you're only getting a little bit of shade by the airport. I will say on the for the ride, we talk a lot about late power. I feel like a lot of our workouts are kind of designed for late power. You'll like you said, you'll know, and you'll be able to, I think, even see a difference. A lot of people are going to get on that bike and hammer those hills, and probably be paying for it on the back half. So I think just being a little bit patient, staying with your game plan, and then having some of that late power towards the final end of that ride. I mean, that's what's going to, I think, help you out on the ride. I think that kind of helps you out with a good run too, though.
100%. 100%. And so there's two things about that. We hit on it early, like how much can you keep your wits about you when everything around you is going bananas? There's more congestion on that 28, the first major class, the 17 miler, 28K. Um, there's going to be people pushing a lot, and they may be going past you. Um, that doesn't. It's not a referendum on how you're doing. It's more of a unless you're just falling to bits. But if you're doing everything that you need to do, if you're checking all the boxes, you're smooth with your power, you're at the right percentage, you are doing like being diligent. Like people do crazy things,
Oh
especially in
yeah.
championship races. And people do not race, everybody doesn't race with um they're racing, they're letting their emotions
They
dictate
get
their
caught up in the
racing.
moment. Yeah, they get excited. They want to see what the bike split's going to be. But I mean, it's not a bike race.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, and then the other point I want to make, and I don't know how many of you guys have raced in Europe, but this is a very emblematic race of how racing in Europe takes place, and that is they attrition's okay. It's not about flattening out a race, making it downstream and downhill so everybody finishes. They almost use it as a badge of honor, like, oh my gosh, we got this many people to crack, right?
Yeah.
So this race embodies that. And if you are smart in delivering power and delivering energy and maintaining focus early, first 60K, first 90K, first 120K on the bike, then you're going to be rewarded with that focus on the descent, having energy, easy power, late power on that 6K climb, and then that 20K back is when people just fall to bits because they haven't had blood flow, they stop focusing, and then they
Yep.
can't ride back into T2. And even if they can, they're pulling their own pin in T2. They may have looked great right before, but 20 minutes later, they're like, I don't want to play anymore. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, um, yeah, that's kind of my uh that final descent. Daniel's like, it's amazing, but you need to concentrate. As amazing as it is, I think you go through a bunch of tunnels. I'm sure we've seen it on like Mission Impossible and Fast and Furious. Like it's epic, right? But pay attention. You've got to concentrate.
Yeah.
Um, you want to be super smart, right? So, and then what we were saying before with the swim, how you were seeing the wind, it could change. So you might need to take new inventory. You might need to like reassess where the wind's coming from so you can take advantage because it is, even though it's pancake flat, the wind could be pushing, inland, could be pushing out to sea. Read the wind and be smart with it. You want to run tall, use your back as a parachute when you have the wind at your back, and you want to kind of keep things a little bit more narrow, the hands a little closer when you're running into the wind, maybe chin down just a little bit versus like that open chest a little bit wider with the wind to try to take advantage of like what kind of energy in the postural changes that you need to do. Yep.
Great.
So that's kind of our niece breakdown. I'm going to see if I can't jump in the comments section. If you guys have questions, throw them in the chat. Okay. Ashley's doing precision hydration 1,000, but only 500 milligrams of sodium. Okay. Um, I think that you can teach your body a lot of things. And I mean there are definitely physical limiters on race day that get oh,
That's what's on course.
that's what's on. Okay. Okay. Um, all right. Maggie says, what do we recommend for the swim around the buoys close to the beach? So I think every time you go towards a buoy, whether it's a left hand, a sighting buoy only, a right hander, 90, it doesn't really matter. I think you need to race it towards your personality. So if you are a go getter and aggressive and you enjoy contact, then I would go straight to the buoy and like mix it up because it's the shortest route. It's not going to derail you. If you are risk averse and you want to just keep it clean, then I say go wide and don't go into the melee. Um, the fewer things are in your control. And for me, like I'm okay with the contact. I'll go in and I try to get out as quickly as I can. But I have had a few races in my career where I thought I was an aggressive racer and like love to mix it up. And that day, for whatever reason, I didn't want conflict. I just want to be amenable. I just, my disposition that day was like, oh, okay. Do you want to go ahead? Sure. And I actually shied away from the buoy. So I would use your personality and your engagement with the moment dictate how much or how close you want to get to the buoy. I would go, um, yeah, the closer you go, the more contact you're going to get, especially in a narrow spot, even with waves, even with things being parsed out and like kind of individualized, it's still tight for all the various reasons. All right, what else we got for questions? Oh yeah. So navigating the aid stations. All right, you got a couple of barriers here. One is multi-loop, and when it's multi-loop, you're mixing it up with people on the third lap, first lap, and second lap, despite what lap you're on. And um, sometimes So if like Steve and I were racing, I think I got a good feel for Steve. We're running next to each other. I feel like I'm feeling him well. We're responding, and I'll be like, okay, it's windy, it's a headwind. I'm gonna go tuck behind Steve, and like you start to use the people around you to your advantage. And so if I sit on Steve, I don't know what he's gonna do. It happens all the time, specifically in Ironman races where you're running and you're running good, and then we'd rock up to an aid station, and it's 100% possible that Steve could be like, and I'm stopping, and he could just stop and grab water, and then boom, car wreck, right? These things totally happen. I will go like and do like an arm's length away from the table, and I will run along and I'll kind of like eyeball it. So when I can like, you're running, I'll go and I'll reach out, grab a thing, and because they'll lay out the cuffs, I'll reach out, grab it, boom. And even that, sometimes like I think I've timed it right, boom, I hit somebody, boom, something goes flying, or my pace is different. So even with a spread out aid station, it can be congested. The one thing I would say is um, unless you are a psychic medium, don't pretend to know what somebody's going to do. You have no idea. You have no idea. Um, you'll even see this on multi-loop course bike courses. You'll be riding along trying to grab a bottle, and someone will just straight up put their brakes on and stop and put feet down. And you're like, what? What's going on? Uh, we're all stopped. Now there's sport people stop, right? So, and that can happen on a single loop too. It's not just a multi-loop. So navigate it well. Also understand the pattern. Pattern will repeat itself and it'll be consistent. The pattern is water, Gatorade, or electrolytes. So it'll go water, electrolyte replacement. Then you start to get into gels and solids. Then it goes to electrolyte replacement, like your Gatorade or Mortal. And then it'll go back to water. And then if it's super hot out, they'll bookend it with ice and then trash cans. So trash cans, ice, water, mortal, uh, depending on when you're running, soup, pretzels.
I've been there for soup.
Uh, I've never had soup.
I will say too.
Um,
I mean, kind of like you said with the swim. If you got to get the nutrition in. So I mean, if you need to be aggressive and get to your spot, so you make sure you get the Coke or you get the water, like you got to do that. I found
Cool.
too, calling it out, like as soon as you get in, Red Bull, and lock eyes maybe with somebody. I mean, that can help a lot. You get some kids out there that they see you yelling, they want to help you, it helps.
Decided too. Like every aid station will have a different vibe, and they're volunteers, and sometimes they're kids.
For sure.
I like the point. I do the point a lot. Um, Also, you have the language barrier, right? But Coke is still Coca Cola, Coca Cola, Coca Cola, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And shoot, I'm blanking. So it's
We need
what's
Daniel. I don't
what's
know.
water in French? I even speak French. Aqua? No. L'eau. Leau. L apostrophe EAU. L'eau. Do l'eau, do l'eau, do l'eau. And so yeah, there you go. Water. L'eau. Um, so I like that. Now Maggie asks about the weather. You cannot control the weather, Maggie. Nobody can. If it rains, then it's going to rain on everybody. What are the tactics you can use to make sure that you're safe and that you're riding in the best position with the best stuff? So when it's wet, a couple things. When it's wet, when the tire's wet and the road is wet, there's a little bit more synergy. Okay. When the wet road is dry and the tire is dry, synergy. When the road is wet and the tire is dry, not great. When the tire is wet and the road is dry, also not great. So you kind of want it to be wet, wet or dry, dry. If it does become wet, dry or dry, wet, then I do, and you know it's going to happen. Like it's at one of those variables, right? It's looking more likely than not that it's going to rain. I will drop my psi. I'll run a little bit less pressure, so I have more surface area to grip on the descents. Um, but you do want to be as perpendicular to the road as possible. That's terrible. Perpendicular to the road as possible. Only when it's wet, wet, and dry, dry, when you can you start to do bike racer stuff and really push the capabilities of a grippy tire. Yeah. Oh, here we go. Not
ISO.
Gatorade, ISO. Oh, okay, like an isotonic drink. Okay, you give it ISO. Yeah, I think that'll help. What else you guys got? I do think um, I do think that controlling the controllables, the things that are within your purview to control, out of water. Any championship race, no matter where you go, if you're going for a championship race, do your best to control those variables, right? Temperature changes, for weather forecast, like what do we know so we can do better? What do we know that we can use in our to our advantage? It's really funny when I talk to kids. Um, when you talk to kids and they're, if you guys have kids and they're into racing or sports in general, right, you'll say, hey, it's going to be pretty cold in the morning and it'll be warm in the afternoon, right? And they're getting ready for a race. Oh, it's going to be cold tomorrow morning. Make sure you bring your jacket. And I don't think the race is, you can wear spikes on the race, but maybe you can. Why don't you bring the spikes just in case? No, we don't need to. Well, you might want to bring them just in case, and make sure you bring your sweatshirt. It's hot. Well, it'll get warmer later in the day, and they just refuse to plan for contingencies. I'm not saying you need to over plan, but like some foresight. And this course is really about that foresight. This is a long descent. What do I do? Fuel before. Why would you like that is like the quintessential uh, prior planning prevents piss poor performance, right?
Yeah.
So fueling up before that descent because you're not going to be able to take your hands off the bars. Um, Doing inventory, you're on a climb and you're like, oh dang, I'm out of water. I can see the aid station half a mile up the road. I do a personal inventory check. What's on board? Oh, okay. I'm going to ditch this bottle. I'm going to take a water first thing. Then, if I have time, I can grab an ISO, or whatever it is, right? So, really trying to do that inventory check, reading what's up the road, fueling before descents, running with a big back into the wind. All these small things, they are the thing. That is racing. That and the whole like prepare to race thing, that whole training thing that kind of helps too. So,
We got one
what
more
else we
question
got?
from Ashley. Coming up the hills, staying in zone versus trying to get ahead of some potentially slower descenders.
What do you got for me, Steve?
What's that? What do I
What do you think?
think?
Yeah.
Um, I'm going to just say it's kind of what you feel comfortable doing. If it was me and I know they're going to be slower on the descent, like I'm going to try to pass them. Is that necessarily the smart or right answer? I don't know. I don't think getting out of your zone too much is what I would recommend as well. So I don't know. But if it was me, I like going downhill. I try to get in front of them, and so they're not in my way.
I think that I agree with Steve. I think racing is dynamic. You can plan for a bunch of things, but if you know you've got a descent coming and there's a slow descender in front of you, then it's worth the spend because you got the descent for the recovery, and it could be just safer and it's like less taxing on your mind to be like, yeah, please just and then you're kind of like wishing for something to happen in front of you, as opposed to like, okay, this is a little expensive right now. I'm going to spend it, move out. And that's the dynamic nature of racing. And I think that's why we do it, is that unpredictable nature. I mean, you don't want to spend the entire time like just overcooking your day 3 hours in, but uh, there are risks versus rewards, and the risk on that one, especially on some of these long descents, like you could be saving yourself multiple minutes
For sure.
because you spent, I don't know, you spend 90 seconds, you spend 4 minutes trying to pass someone. Fine, 4 minutes. And then what do you get back? You were a little risky, but you fueled at the top. You have an 18-minute descent versus a 28-minute descent. And then all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm still engaged. I'm still here. I'm still in the moment. I don't know. I like what Steve said. I like being dynamic. Um, and if you goof it, then we learn and we do better next time. All right, what else we got? Oh yeah. Yeah, I think safer, honestly, Ashley, is safer is probably throwing a little bit of caution to the wind in terms of your energy expenditure and following a better line downhill. Um, yeah, and it just like because some people are just crash machines and they don't know it yet. There's yeah, what is it? What do they say? There's two kind of bike riders: those who have crashed and those who are gonna crash. That's terrible. That's not necessarily true, is it?
It's
So
true.
I've crashed. Um, okay, I think we kind of went through it. I do have a couple like logistical things. Um,
I'll grab one of those.
yeah,
Camps dates have been sent out in an email. Looks like priority registration ends October 15th, but you can go ahead and start registering now for camps. I am planning on being at Chula Vista, making my camp comeback. So, yeah, get some. Yeah. And then it looks like official opening day. Yeah. So October 15th is priority registration ends for camp.
we also have new gear that like kind of a new look that we're going for in 2025. A little bit brighter, a little bit more noticeable on race day. So you guys should all have gotten an email on the kind of the new look. Um, Once we finalize our kind of our teams, whether that's the squad or the crew, we will send out links to gear up for 2025 because it does. We do a pre-order and it is made to order. So um, I want to say like October 1st is when the first round of applications for the crew and the squad are up, and we'll have information back to you. Well, it takes me and Daniel, I don't know, we do like a conference call to kind of, we'll read through applications and then we do, like we will star them like this, and then we map them over each other, right? So we'll kind of map them and say, okay, like if we have consensus, they're through. If there's not, then we kind of argue, hey, this is my guy, this is my guy, this is my girl should be on, right? Um, yep. So and then also coaching. I hope that those of you who we do coach are finding it very valuable. We try to educate you and make it so you're not making a lot of the mistakes that we've made as coaches when we were athletes or are athletes, and the fact that like we're learning from all of the athletes that we're coaching, like, hey, this is a better way to communicate, or this is this we find that this, when you have 10 hours to train a week, let's really like nail down these parameters. These are the most important pieces to the puzzle. And yeah, if you're doing your own thing, awesome. But if you have been doing the same thing and you claim that you're not insane, but you are doing the same thing and you're getting the same result, and you claim you're not insane, maybe you should re examine and might be time for you to switch it up. if you want a different result. If you're happy with the same result, awesome. But if you want something new, uh, give us a shot. I do know that like Scott joined us with coaching, and he'd never won his age group this year. Not Scott Callahan, but Scott Conroy, and he won an Ironman, and he won a 70.3 this year. Yeah, so yeah, we're pretty passionate about what we do, and hopefully you guys feel that and notice it. Sibo, you got anything? Did I
No,
hit the
you nailed it.
logistics?
Did we say October 1st? If you want to change your coaching or change, October 1st is the auto renew. So if you're happy with where you're at, it's going to roll over. If you'd like some changes, let Daniel or either of us know you want some changes. If you have any questions, especially about one-on-one coaching versus some of the other options, feel free to reach out to me. I can help as well as Andy and Daniel.
All right. Oh, okay. Like the pink stripe. Um, oh, coaching apprenticeships. So we do bring coaches on board. If you are interested in coaching, uh, yeah, you got to reach out to us, throw us an email. But we do spend a lot of time with coaches, whether they're new or old, teaching them like the why behind what we do. Um, whether that's through science or through trial and error, which is kind of science in a way. We do believe that every athlete is an experiment of one, and what works for one may not work for another. So because it's all there, everybody has some different variable in their life. Like even if you're neighbors, something's different, right? Even if you're twins, something's different, right? The circumstances for everybody's life is not the same. Therefore, um, our approach is fair, but not always the same. And I think therein lies the kind of the magic sauce when it comes to coaching and the feedback loop that we pride ourselves on is that feedback between the athlete and the coach. Hey, this is what I'm thinking. And then it's, oh, this is what I'm feeling, or this is how things have changed. And we take it from there. So it's not a set it and forget it. It is dynamic. It is feedback oriented, and that's mostly because that's how I spent a lot of my career with my coaches was the feedback loop, being entrenched inside. So I think that's part of what makes AP racing a little bit different, specifically when you talk about like I'd say probably tri dot. Like we're just a little bit different, um, even if we even if they can individualize everything. There's something that makes us a little bit different. So hopefully that makes sense. Cool. Sorry if you heard other voices around me when I was talking. The house is, for some reason, it's Monday, but some reason we don't have school today. And so everybody's here.
That's why I
So,
came snapped back in the closet.
all right. That's what we got for today. Do you have to be? No, no. Great. You do not have to be on the squad or the crew to wear the AP racing kit. No, we have a particular one, right? But everybody with AP Racing has our race kit, and the crew gets a special one. Is it the crew? Is that right?
Yeah.
Did I
And
reverse
Greg,
it?
Greg, we can chat about it. You'll learn quickly. You'll be the fastest in an AP racing kit. So let's get that ordered soon. That's all I got, Andy. Thanks a lot.
You can. All right. Mount.
Sparrow.
Oh wait. If you want to reach out, send Andy at Andy Potts Racing an email. Andy at AndyPottsRacing.com, an email. I'll help you out. Yes, Catherine, it is going to be Sparrow. And that's what we got.
Yeah.
Twos.